Hey guys, Red Razor here. I'm here to show off my Poison Pathfinder build and to show that it is not an F tier ascendancy like most people believed prior to EA launch. A lot of people put it as one of the worst ascendancies in the game. They didn't think it was very good. They didn't look very cool. And while I will say the ascendancy itself does not have that cool, flashy appeal as some of the other ascendancies, it is actually really good in comparison. Its damage is on par with some of the meta builds right now. It has some insane clear, insane power. It has the ability to clear maps very quickly. It's basically a 2-button build. There's a bunch of buttons down here, as you can see, but for the most part, you use Poison Burst Arrow. You use Plague Nova. Sometimes it's used when you get surrounded or you just want to press it and blow everything up around you. It's very strong. Poison Burst Arrow gets the job done most of the time. These other 4 skills, I use them as utility skills. They do different things depending on what I'm doing, and I'll go over that later when we cover the gem links and all that stuff. So I'm just going to hop in a couple maps, show you some gameplay, show you what the build looks like, how it feels, and all that good stuff.
Don't mind if I do.
Alright guys, I'm going to go over the gem links with you here. We're going to start with Poison Burst Arrow. It's a pretty straightforward skill. When I went through the campaign, I did it on the first day of launch. That was before they buffed drops, so it was very hard to get weapons. It was very hard to get gear. To me, Act 1, Poison Burst Arrow did not feel very strong. I actually used Lightning Arrow until I got to my first or second poison node on the tree that allowed me to actually use Poison Burst Arrow and it do some damage. However, your damage is, in the early game and all stages of the game, directly tied to your bow. I've been using this bow since Act 5, I want to say, Act 4 or 5, something like that. And in all honesty, I need an upgrade. I could get a very big damage upgrade. The only things on this bow that really apply to me is the increased fizz damage and the adds fizz damage. Everything else is, like, basically could take off the bow and I wouldn't notice the difference. So I could get a very big bow upgrade with, like, +1 arrow, attack speed that would make what you just saw even better. So it has a lot of potential to scale even harder. Like I said, this is my bow. So to the links though, Poison Burst Arrow, to start in Act 1, when you do use Poison Burst Arrow, I will cover this in the tree. You're going to want to start with Pierce. This needs to be the first skill or support gem you take. you're going to want Pierce. It allows your arrow to help you clear packs. Eventually, you will drop Pierce when you get like a penetrating quiver later on that's with good stats. There's also nodes on the tree that when we get to and we put points in, we will drop Pierce. But to start, Act 1, you want to take Pierce. That should be the first one you take. Second one, I like Corrosion. You could do Martial Tempo, either or. These are all tier 1 support gems, so you can take these as soon as you get support gem drops. I like Corrosion. It lowers their armor. With no armor, your poisons do more damage with the way poisons works. So generally I would take that one second, and then I would take Martial Tempo third when you get that third slot. Once you get a fourth one, I take Comorbidity. It gives you +1 more poisons, and with your Ascendancy, that's essentially +2 poisons because Pathfinder doubles all the poisons you can do. So that becomes a +2. Pretty good. And then for the last one, you can take either or. Personally, I like Deadly Poison. It does more. However, this doesn't have the downside of less damage with hits. So like if you don't have, later in the game, you could always go Swift Affliction and then Deadly Poisons. You can pick and choose between these two. It's kind of whatever you prefer. I like taking Deadly Poisons over Swift, mostly because of the duration, less duration. A lot of the poison nodes on the trees give you less duration. So personally, I would use Deadly Poisons, right? And then whenever you end up dropping Pierce, right? So let's say it looks like this. You just put in the last one. So for your last two, these are interchangeable. It is preference. Like I said, I like Deadly Poisons a little bit more just because there's no less duration, and it's pretty nice on like bosses and stuff. So either or works. That's how it is for that. So we'll go to the next one. Plague Bearer. This is our second main skill that we use for clearing. It's pretty good. It's basically all the poison you do. So like when you shoot your poison burst arrow into a pack, it stores part of that poison damage into this, and essentially you press it, as you saw in the video, poof, big poof of poison comes out and applies poison and does a lot of impact damage as well. So it's the way it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's So with the support gems, we're gonna use Splinter. The reason I take Splinter is I find that if it's a pack that I come up to first and I haven't already shot it with Poison Burst, it'll break some of the armor. So if it doesn't die to my Plague Bearer, I shoot it one time with Poison Burst arrow, it's probably going to be dead. We take these two mastery skills, +1 support chaos, +1 support physical. Reason being, it just gives it more damage. So you can see here, stores up to 11k poison damage essentially, right? So if we take these out, lower the level, you've already dropped it in half. Stores up to 6k poison damage. So literally this +2 right here, and it doesn't even affect the cost because it doesn't have a cost. It's a Herald, a Spirit Gem, so there is no inherent cost to it. It literally doubles the potential damage I can do for free. So those are really good. I would definitely put those in there. Unfortunately, these are tier 3 support gems. So until you're able to, get to the tier 3 support gems, which I have here, you can use some tier 1 supports. There's a couple you can do. So every time you go to cut a support gem, don't click all gems. It literally shows you all gems, but not all of these link. What I would recommend is, like, for example, I've got Plague Bearer. I'm looking for it. It has these recommended. Just click this. This shows you every gem that is able to be linked to it. So when it comes to the tier 1s, until you get Splinter, I mean, that's literally the only tier 2 you want to use. It's herbalisms, whatever. So you can throw on Conk Effect and Magnified Effect, which is just area of effect and area damage, and it just, it kind of counteracts the loss of area of effect from here. So you get to keep pretty much the area of effect while also just getting the damage buff from Conk Effect. You could use Expanse as well for a little bit more AoE, but it does apply a 6-second cooldown. I used it some. I actually used it in the campaign a little bit. I found that a lot of the times the 6-second didn't affect me, but then there were times where it would. When you do go to cast Plague Bearer, It isn't an instant cast. It's kind of like a very, very minor delay. So it's kind of like a small cast time per se, right? A mob can hit you during that cast time and stop the cast. I found that if I had Expanse on and I got hit, it would go on cooldown. I could no longer cast it. I'd have to wait 6 seconds. And I would die occasionally due to that because I couldn't just clear everything around me. So use it at your own risk. It's not terrible. Just be wary of it. That is a very potential. Everything else is not very good to put on it. So you basically will just use Conk Effect Expanse if you want to until you can get Splinter and the 2+1s. So I'll go to the next one. We have Gas Arrow. I like using this in like Ritual, Expedition, you know, all the basically the league mechanics essentially, and even bosses because it just allows for more uptime of your poisons on it. It actually, the poison that comes from this actually is pretty good because it does not hit them, so you're not actually shooting them, but it does poison them as though you are hitting them. So it applies essentially the same poison that Poison Burst would, except there's no impact damage from the actual arrow. It's actually really good. It's good to keep poisons up. Good for bosses. Good for rares, beefy rares. I like it, like I said, for like ritual stuff. Reason being, you touch the, you know, the altar or whatever. You start putting your gas arrows everywhere. Everything that spawns that's around you, because it spawns basically on top of you, immediately starts having poisons on it and starts dying quickly as you're shooting them. It just gets your poisons up faster. It's pretty good. Like I said, there's no impact damage, so that's why I don't use it as a main skill. Scaling fist damage, Poison Burst literally makes you a, you know, shooting an arrow plus poisons. So not bad. The supports that I use with this is Bursting Plagues. This is pretty good in those situations like ritual and stuff, because as you know, stuff spawns, it's already accumulating as poisons. It gets an actual added debuff. It doesn't show it on the tooltips. I hope GGG changes that. But when it dies and it's affected by a poison of the gas, you know, gas arrow, it explodes, gives a little mini explosion, basically does more damage to nearby enemies. So it's even more, like, you know, even better for clearing. We use Magnified Effect. It's 40% area effect. Just makes the gas clouds bigger, cover more area, and then Scatter Shot. Both of these, I believe, are tier 1s. You can use both of these right away. Scatter Shot is a tier 2, if I'm not mistaken. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit away, and it's only a 3-socket. As you can see, I've also only have 3 sockets. I have not gotten really any 4 links. I've only gotten 1, and I used it. And then I also got very, very lucky and got my 6 link, but still haven't gotten another 4 link. I'll probably 4 link that next, and when that happens, I'll probably look at support gems for Plague Bearer and put it in the comments below. However, it doesn't really look like there was anything crazy that you'd want to put on there. I mean, you could probably take Expanse from the other one, but I'll have to mess around with it and figure it out then. However, we'll go to the next one. We have Vine Arrow next. It's pretty good. I use this as a slowing and a buffer. It doesn't do a lot of crazy damage from what I've seen. I mean, it does do damage, and it does even more when it's poisoned. So, like, putting it on the ground in a pack of enemies and then shooting enemies, and it poisons that as well. It'll do more damage. I mostly use it as a slower and, like, some bosses. I put Encumbrance on it, so the slows even, like, harder, slows them even more. I put the 2 fonts, Font of Rage, Font of Blood. I threw these on there just because if I'm standing near it, it'll give me life regen and more attack damage because it gives me rage. So, unfortunately, both of these are tier 3, so really the only thing you're looking at is Encumbrance. You could throw some other things on there while you're in the earlier acts, like Persistence, if you want it to last longer. You could do stuff like that. Those are the 3 I use. I probably won't even 4-socket this. It's really is just like a buffing thing and slowing. If there are other slows supports, which we can see real quick if there is. No, it's literally the acceleration and encumbrance. It's like not really. There's nothing really else to pair with it. Then you have Rain of Arrows. I use this also as another utility. It's really good in our setup. Because we are a fizz-based build and we want to get as much physical damage as possible for our poisons, Rain of Arrows just made sense to fit in and turn it into a utility spell. We put on Blind, and as you know, Blind makes the monsters have less accuracy and evasion, so you hit them more, less likely to hit you. It just goes hand in hand. as you're an evasion-based character. Makes it harder for you to get hit. So, pretty good. I put on Overpower. This is very nice on bosses and rares that don't die very fast. You dump Rain of Arrows on it, and that stun meter fills up very, very quickly when it comes to that. And then we add Culling Strike, just because when I'm using it on bosses and stuff, or mobs, or I put it on a big pack. I don't really use it in packs too often, but like rares and stuff, it'll just cull them. Oh yeah, and it also only does rare and uniques, right? So it just culls them, so it's not bad. 5%, 10% for bosses and then rares. Next we have Toxic Growth. Now this is a skill that I tried to build around as well, and then I found it's just too inconsistent in terms of the way it interacts with the game. Every time you press it, you do a little jump, so it's not terrible. It's like an escape skill. Puts these pods. If you don't poison the pods, about 6 seconds, they go poof, do a bunch of damage. If you use it, and then you can gas cloud it, or if you shoot somebody that's on it and it poisons them, they explode very, very quickly. So I'm not 100% sure. The game doesn't really specify this. I imagine the explosions are just chaos damage base and not fizz base, because there is no physical damage tag up here. So it looks like it is just chaos damage. So with that in mind, I put on Chaos Infusion. It just gains 25 extra damage as extra chaos damage, and they deal 50% less chaos damage. Well, considering it doesn't do anything other than chaos damage, there's no downside, so it's a no-brainer. I put on Hourglass because I only use this for bosses. Basically, like when I know where a boss is spawning or a boss is dropping, I dump it on the ground, and I just wait. So like I say, the boss is right there, I wait, boss is on the ground, boom, I'll just drop my arrows, and they'll pop on the boss. And with that in mind, I threw on Withering Touch, because other than this skill, I really couldn't find a way to apply Withering Touch very effectively. I thought about Rain of Arrows, but it didn't feel good on Rain of Arrows because it was a fizz-based skill. It cut that skill in half in damage, and you want the damage for stunning and everything as well. So this is the only logical place I could actually fit this, which is nice on like rares and stuff and bosses. I use it on rares sometimes that have like chaos resist and stuff like that, because it does help. And each of these postals, when they hit the ground, can apply Wither, and when they blow up can apply Wither, and it stacks up to 50, so you can get up to 50% increased damage with your poison. Not bad on bosses and, really, really tanky rares. We have a second aura here, the Wind Dancer. This is our defensive one. It's essentially just evasion rating, and then on hit, it does a little knockback when you get hit. That's about it. It's, nothing crazy. Because of that, we throw on Vitality, Precision, and Clarity, which when I get hit, it'll just give me some life regen. It'll give me a little bit more accuracy. So if something actually does make it up to me and hit me, it gives me more accuracy, which in turn is more damage. To just kill them up, it'll just die. I'll kill it. So, and then Clarity, because when you get to higher levels, you are pressing your Mana Flask a lot. So it just gives me a little mana regen. There wasn't really anything else to put on this support, or to support this gem. It being an aura. So like when you do this, it does show all these other things. The only reason it's allowed to have all these is just because of the Gale Force, but it's a melee attack, essentially, and you don't have any melee scaling, so trying to scale the damage of the knockback just does not, it doesn't do anything. So it's worth it to just put those on there when you get the Spirit, and you can fit all of this from the Spirit you get from the campaign. Between the two auras, we have Wind Dancer and Plague Bearer. I use Plague Bearer when I'm going through the campaign. There are some bosses you'll want to swap to Wind Dancer because they hit you a lot. Like there's one that's got Shrouded, where it just basically teleports to you and smacks you. Wind Dancer will help a lot with your sustainability on that boss, and it won't kill you. So keep that in mind as well. It's good to have for stuff like that. I put these on here because, like I said, nothing else. None of this really matters. So now we're going to go to the passive skill tree, and while we go to the passive skill tree, I am going to be referencing gear, so you'll get a peek at the gear that I have equipped. After I go over the skill tree, I'll go over the gear, what you want, and all that good stuff. So keep that in mind that I will be referencing gear in the skill tree, only because for things like Pierce, it matters. The skill tree and the gear, what you have, matters when you want to make some of these changes, and I'll point that out, and I'll make note of it when it gets there. So let's go on to that. We're going to start with our Ascendancy. First Ascendancy, you're going to go here, Contagious Contamination. Your second one, you're going to take Overwhelming Toxicity. Our third one will be going into Traveler's Wisdom. And our fourth one will be running Assault, just for quality of life, moving around while shooting our arrows. This is what your tree should look like towards the end of Act 1, Act 2. What you want to do is path along here. You want to grab Crippling Toxins first. Then you want to come grab Stacking Toxins. Then you'll grab Lasting Toxins. You'll come grab Additional Pierce. And then you'll come grab Movement Speed, Skill Speed. It's very nice quality of life. Once you've gotten to this point, you're going to replace Pierce. So your next set of points should be to this node right here, Piercing Shot. You'll drop Pierce, you'll put in one of the other gem links that I've shown you, and you have about an 80% chance to pierce with these if you don't have Pierce on your quiver at this point, as a suffix or whatever. Not bad. It's only 20% chance to not pierce. It's a pretty high chance, 80%. You won't really notice it. It's not really a DPS loss, so it's good. After you swapped out Pierce, you want to come here, grab Attack Speed. You'll grab all these nodes, travel nodes. You'll grab Escalating Toxins, and then you'll come up here and grab Pure Chaos. You do not want to grab Wither Away. I know it looks good. I've used it. I've tried it. It only applies 7 stacks of Withered. Our skills apply Wither way better, and it's really not that good. Plus, we're ranged, so they have to be on top of us anyways. So we avoid that node. Once you get to this point, you should be pushing towards level 55. Once you get level 55, you should be looking for a Penetrating Quiver. Once you get a Penetrating Quiver, it has a 100% chance to pierce an enemy. Once you are able to equip one of those, grab it, good. There's only 2 things you really want. Add Fizz damage. As long as you have Add Fizz damage and either increase proj or damage with bow skills, you're good to go. You can buy one probably for pretty cheap on PoE trade if you don't find one. As soon as you're able to equip it, I highly recommend you go do it. It allows you to get those 4 points back on the tree and put them elsewhere. Everything else is just an added benefit at this point. If you can get one that has attack speed as well as those other 2, great. Dexterity is also okay. Mana on per enemies killed is not terrible. You don't want to grab level of all projectile skills if you're having mana issues. If you're not having mana issues and you got mana on kill elsewhere, you can take this. You'll just have to hit your mana flask a little bit more, but it is good. 2 things you really want though, Fizz damage to attacks, and then either proj speeds or bow skills. If you can get all 3, great. Once you have that, you'll drop these 4 points, and you'll come up here and you will take Building Toxins. You also come up here, you'll grab Leeching Toxins, and give you Magnitude of Poison, Life on Kill. Then you'll come up here and grab Kite Runner. More movement speed, projectile speed, and projectile damage. This is a pretty big node. It's not bad. Once you have all those projectile speeds, and you have a quiver that also probably has projectile speed, or just a good quiver in general, you'll want to grab these, and you'll want to grab that. This right here, projectile speed applies to damage, so it's even more damage. Taking this node makes this immense damage. This also just basically increases the damage from your quiver by a lot. I think it's what, 40, yeah, it's 70% increased bonuses, 80%, so it almost doubles. It actually almost doubles the bonuses from your quiver. Pretty good. I wouldn't take this until you have a good quiver. Once you have a good quiver, boom, you're set. Once you get all these, you should be getting into endgame by now. You should be wearing, the highest tier evasion armor you can if possible, or looking to upgrade into those. With that in mind, you should also have a large amount of evasion at this point. You're going to want to start pathing towards these nodes. This gives 8% increased dexterity and 30% increased evasion rating. Getting a bunch of dexterity in process. That just gives us damage and more defenses. You can also come over here and grab this one. This just gives you more evasion rating and movement speed. You can take that point back, and you can move that elsewhere. This is what my tree looks like currently. This is where I am at as I push into endgame content. I don't know if I'm going to invest more in defenses or damage yet. I kind of got to get into deeper maps and see what it's like, if I'm getting hit too much, if I need more damage. There's a couple nodes I've looked at for both sides of the coin. As I push deeper into maps and I make that decision, I will be updating the Mobalytics link below in the description. If you get to this point and you're not sure where to go, check that link out. I'll have it updated. I'll have where I'm at, and you can go from there. Alright guys, I'm going to go over my gear and potential gear upgrades, what you want on your gear, and ideally at different bases. So we'll start with the weapon. You just want a pure fizz bow. The more fizz you have, the better. The more damage you'll do. As you can see, all my suffixes are really bad. They're worthless. The only thing that matters on this bow is fizz damage. A good bow upgrade from here would be to keep all the fizz damage that I have and get like +1 arrow, attack speed. Pretty sure you can get plus level of all gems on your bow. So something along those lines. Like we can check real quick. Let me go up here and look. So ideally you get dex, level all proj. You can get mana on kill if you need it. I'm not a big fan of it because I have it elsewhere, so I don't really need it. If you don't have it elsewhere, you can get it on your bow. Attack speed, and then also additional arrows. That's like a big one as well. So going from there, we're going to go to the quiver because these are the two main pieces of damage. Everything else is mostly defenses with a little bit of damage on your gloves and rings, but we're going to cover the quiver next. I kind of covered it earlier when I was showing you for the passive tree, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Fizz damage, can't say it enough. Projectile speeds, all proj skills, increased damage bonus, dex. I mean, this is a pretty good, decent quiver. Obviously, the rolls could be higher, but they're basically just a combo with your bow. You just want as much fizz damage as possible, and it's not really confusing. Now we're going to go over the gear. It's pretty easy. You just want to use the highest tier gear you can for evasion, as much evasion as possible. Obviously, there's 4 things you want on your gear, if possible. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to acquire with crafting in PoE 2 as it is. You want max life and resistances. Those are the only things you care about. Everything else is just flavor. The more max life you have, the more likely you can live a hit and not get one shot, and the resistances help with that. That's the goal with the gear. That's really about it. I can just show you my gear real quick and go over it, but as you can see, that's essentially what I have. Same thing with the chest piece. Highest tier you can use, as much max life, resistances. Same thing with the gloves. The only thing about the gloves I would add is a little bit difference, is that the gloves can roll some damage mods. If you want more damage, obviously you want fizz damage on your gloves, but as much max life, maybe fizz damage. If you don't have mana on kill elsewhere, you can get them on your gloves. You do need that somewhere, whether it's your gloves, your quiver, or your bow. You need it for the sustain while clearing. You only need it in one spot, because like I said, once you put your poisons on a pack, it kills the pack, your mana bar's full. So you have to get that one mod somewhere. I have them on my gloves. Outside of that, resistances, max life again. Go over to the boots. Same thing on the boots. The only difference is movement speed. It's a pretty rare mod. The movement speed on these boots make the boots extremely valuable. If you can't get movement speed, obviously you just want max life and resistances. I got very lucky. I found this in my trial. 20% movement speed, triple res with a good max life roll. These boots are probably never getting replaced. This is ideal, what you want. We'll go to the belt next. Same thing applies to the belt, except I would use one specific base. I don't have the best base. The only thing that this belt really gives me is max life, because I don't really have charge issues, and the thorns damage is whatever. Charms are nice, because I run a rarity charm, so I get rarity when I kill rares and uniques more often, which isn't even that often, because you're running around killing a bunch of stuff in between anyways, so that it really doesn't give me anything other than max life. So I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to show you what you guys want on a belt. So the first things first, there is only one base you want. It is a utility belt. You only can equip it at level 55, so keep that in mind. Until level 55, you can use any base you want. It really doesn't matter. You can pick one that seems appealing to you, which one you like, that you can use at your level. The modifiers, same thing as the armor pretty much. Obviously, you want max life, as much max life as possible, and resistances. There is one exception that I would say. If you can get a belt with charm slots, it allows you to use more charms, which give you more ailment immunities or resistances or whatever you potentially need. So charm slots, very valuable outside of the max life than just resistances. We're going to go over the jewelry. I'm going to start with my amulet. I basically use the rings and the amulet to try and fill gaps that my gear has left. And these are the last things I've replaced because they're the most expensive. Even acquiring them, buying them on trade, they're not the easiest to get. So I put them off to last. I just got this amulet yesterday. Ton of max life, ton of rarity, +1 of all projectile skills, all attributes and resistances. Pretty good. We can go look at the modifiers real quick. Obviously, you're going to want max life. If you can get a max life with increased max life roll, that is really, really, really good. Honestly, you can pick between those two. You either need one or the other. Both work. You're going to want increased evasion rating if possible. It's pretty good. If you don't want to go for evasion, you can swap it out for rarity. It's pretty good. I haven't really seen a use for more spirit, so I've avoided spirit on all my gear because there's not really any crazy good buffs that we can't already access and need more of. For the suffixes, if you need resistances, you can get resistances. If you want damage, you can go to all level projectile skills. You can also get rarity, and that's about it. So it's more as just resistances, rarity, and projectile level to your projectile skills. Outside of that, that's about it. So we'll go over the rings next. I have these two rings. We'll start with this one. It's a chaos-based ring. Ideally, your end game rings are going to be chaos resistance rings. It is very, very difficult to cap chaos res, so you're going to want chaos rings. This ring's not terrible. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any resistances on it, but it has fizz damage and max life and accuracy rating, so it does give me some damage and some rarity. You do want some rarity somewhere on your gear because it does affect the drops you get in maps of like currency, your bases. It doesn't just give you more yellows. It also affects the tier that drops, so you'll see more like advanced and expert gear. Your currency will be more likely to be regals and exalteds. Like you just get more of the higher tier stuff. So it's very good to get that somewhere in your gear. If you can fit more, great. If you need other stuff, you have to balance it as you go along. This is my other ring. It's just another damage ring with a little bit of lightning res. We got lightning damage, fizz damage. This is probably my next piece of equipment I'm going to replace with my belt. It gives me really nothing other than 29 lightning res and some fizz damage. I can buy a lightning res ring and fizz damage on it for cheap. That also just gives me other stuff. I just have it because I've been blasting, having too much fun to sit there and message people to buy an item. I also like trying to find my own gear. So if it gets to a point where I need to replace it, I'll go buy it. But I would ideally like to make one myself. And we'll go look at the modifiers for rings as well. As you can see, it's the same thing. You just want max life on the prefix. You can get increased chaos damage. That would be a big upgrade. And then you also probably want either rarity, accuracy rating, or fizz damage. It really just depends. You probably don't want accuracy rating, but if you can't get fizz damage and get accuracy rating, sure. But those are the three you want. Max life, fizz damage, chaos damage. Your suffixes, same thing as everything else. Resistances, resistances, resistances. It's very hard to cap your resistances in PoE 2 and balance them at the same time. If you have capped resistances and you have open suffixes, obviously you can go for some rarity or, yeah, rarity. You can also get mana on kill on your rings. If you don't have it elsewhere, it's just another spot besides your weapon, or your gloves or whatever. As I said before, you need that somewhere at least once. And as I said, you do want to go for chaos rings. Or the amethyst rings. They do give you chaos res. I haven't messed around with the breach rings yet. These actually have the potential to be very, very good because the max quality is 50%, but I have not seen one. I haven't even looked at the market. There's a chance that these could be the best rings just because of quality with catalysts. You could probably get your resistances and damages up very, very high with this based on what you use them for. Thanks guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. It'd mean a lot to me. Just started this channel. It was my first build guide. If you have any thoughts, improvements on what I could do to make it better for the build, maybe any ideas on the build, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll be posting a link to all the tools I use, the Bobalytics, and a link to my Discord. If you have any questions about the build or need help, feel free to come in there and ask some questions. I'd be more than willing to help anybody. I plan on playing this for a while until I can build up a large amount of currency to basically try other builds. I want to create more builds and see what kind of interaction we can do. There's not a whole lot of options in PoE 2, but hey, you never know. There's new stuff being discovered every day, so I look forward to doing that. Again, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.